Number 1. Freddie Eugene Owens, also known as Khalil Allah. State of execution: South Carolina. Between 1997 and 2024, Freddie Eugene Owens, also known as Khalil Allah, was convicted for the 1997 murder of 52-year-old Irene Graves during a robbery in Charleston, South Carolina. Owens, along with an accomplice, carried out a violent robbery at Graves' home. During the robbery, Irene Graves was shot and killed. The crime went undetected for several years, with the investigation initially producing no concrete leads. Authorities grew suspicious after new forensic evidence linked Owens to the crime, leading to his arrest. Owens was arrested after ballistic tests and fingerprint evidence identified him as the killer. Although he maintained his innocence throughout his trial, Owens was convicted for the murder of Irene Graves. The motive for the killing appeared to be robbery, although Owens could not fully explain his actions. He was convicted of first-degree murder for the killing of Irene Graves. During the trial, the prosecution presented overwhelming forensic evidence, and Owens was sentenced to death. His execution would mark South Carolina's first in 13 years. Freddie Eugene Owens spent several years on death row at the South Carolina Department of Corrections. He was described as quiet and unresponsive during his time in prison. Despite multiple appeals, Owens' requests for clemency were denied, and he maintained his innocence throughout the proceedings. On September 20, 2024, Owens was served a simple last meal: fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, and a slice of apple pie, along with iced tea. He spent his final hours with a chaplain and remained calm. Freddie Eugene Owens was executed by lethal injection at the South Carolina Department of Corrections in Columbia, South Carolina, on September 20, 2024. He was pronounced dead at 12:01 a.m. His final words were, "I am sorry for what happened to Irene Graves, and I hope everyone finds peace." Number 2. Marcellus Khalifa Williams. State of execution: Missouri. In 1998, Marcellus Khalifa Williams was convicted for the brutal murder of Felicia Gale, a 32-year-old woman from St. Louis, Missouri. Gale was found dead in her home from multiple stab wounds, and the murder was initially believed to be the result of a robbery gone wrong. Williams was arrested after witnesses linked him to the crime scene. Despite maintaining his innocence, Williams was convicted, and the case was largely circumstantial. Over the years, DNA evidence came to light, suggesting that another individual may have been involved in the crime. However, the evidence was not enough to stop his execution, and his appeals were repeatedly denied. Williams' defense team argued that there had been a miscarriage of justice and that the DNA evidence warranted further investigation, but the courts found no grounds for a stay of execution. On September 24, 2024, after nearly 26 years on death row, Marcellus Khalifa Williams was executed by lethal injection at the Missouri State Penitentiary in Jefferson City, Missouri. He was pronounced dead at 6:03 p.m. Williams' final meal was a simple request for a cheeseburger, fries, and a soda, which he ate while reflecting on his final moments. He spent his last hours with his spiritual advisor, maintaining his calm and composure throughout the process. Before his execution, Williams made a final statement: "I'm not guilty, but I forgive all of you. I hope you all find peace." Marcellus Khalifa Williams was executed despite ongoing claims of innocence and DNA evidence that suggested another person may have been involved in the crime. His case has raised further debate about the fairness of the death penalty and the potential for wrongful convictions. Number 3. Travis James Mollis. State of execution: Texas. Travis James Mollis was executed for an unspecified crime in the state of Texas. The details surrounding the crime for which Mollis was convicted remain unclear, with limited public information available about the specific nature of his offense. Mollis was arrested in connection with the crime and spent years on death row at the Polunsky unit in Livingston, Texas. During his time on death row, he maintained his innocence, though the legal and judicial processes surrounding his conviction were not fully disclosed to the public. The case attracted little media attention, leading to questions regarding the opacity of the criminal justice process and the reasons for his execution. The crime for which Mollis was convicted remains broadly unspecified in public records, leaving room for speculation and concerns about transparency in his case. However, his legal team made multiple appeals during the years leading up to his execution, but all efforts to reverse his conviction were unsuccessful. On September 24, 2024, Travis James Mollis was executed by lethal injection at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville, Texas. He was pronounced dead at 9:15 p.m. Mollis's final meal consisted of a traditional Southern meal: fried chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, green beans, cornbread, and iced tea. He spent his final hours with his spiritual advisor and other prison officials, reportedly remaining calm throughout. Before his execution, Mollis made a brief final statement: "I have no anger in my heart. I leave in peace." Travis James Mollis was executed in Texas despite the ambiguity surrounding the crime for which he was convicted. His case remains an example of the complexities and controversies that sometimes surround the application of the death penalty. Number 4. Keith Edmund Gavin. State of execution: Alabama. In 1998, Keith Edmund Gavin was convicted of the brutal murder of 34-year-old Janet Lee Thomas in Birmingham, Alabama. Gavin was accused of killing Thomas during a robbery gone wrong, after he violently attacked her in her home. The murder went unsolved for several years until evidence led to Gavin's arrest in 2001. Despite his claims of innocence, Gavin was found guilty and sentenced to death. His legal team argued that the evidence against him was circumstantial, but the jury convicted him after a lengthy trial. In the years that followed, Gavin made several attempts to appeal his conviction, including challenging the effectiveness of his defense and presenting new evidence, but his appeals were ultimately denied. On September 25, 2024, Keith Edmund Gavin was executed for the 1998 murder by nitrogen hypoxia at the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama. This execution marked Alabama's second use of nitrogen gas as a method of execution, a procedure that had previously been criticized for its potential to cause suffering, as the gas is untested in execution protocols. Gavin's final meal consisted of a simple request for a cheeseburger, fries, and a soda, which he ate in silence while reflecting on his final hours. He spent his last moments in the presence of his spiritual advisor and remained calm as the execution began. Before his death, Gavin's final statement was, "I am sorry for what I've done. To Janet's family, I hope you find peace." Keith Edmund Gavin was executed by nitrogen hypoxia on September 25, 2024, in Alabama. The controversial method raised ongoing concerns about the ethical implications of using untested execution techniques, and Gavin's case added to the debate surrounding the use of nitrogen gas in lethal procedures. He was pronounced dead at 12:03 a.m. Number 5. Michael Dwayne Smith. State of execution: Oklahoma. In 1992, Michael Dwayne Smith was convicted for the brutal killing of 27-year-old Karen Denise Thompson in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Smith was accused of fatally stabbing Thompson during a robbery. The victim was a mother of two, and the crime was particularly violent, with evidence indicating that Smith had targeted Thompson's home in search of money and valuables. Smith's trial was marked by contentious debates over the fairness of his defense and whether the death penalty was an appropriate sentence. His defense team argued that Smith suffered from severe mental health issues and had a difficult upbringing, but the jury convicted him after a short deliberation. Smith's conviction was upheld in multiple appeals, although several new pieces of evidence were presented during the years that followed, suggesting that the severity of his mental health condition may not have been fully accounted for during his trial. Despite recommendations for clemency from the Oklahoma Parole Board, which highlighted his mental health struggles and the possibility of rehabilitation, Smith's execution proceeded. On September 26, 2024, Michael Dwayne Smith was executed by lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, Oklahoma. The execution took place despite growing public debate on whether clemency should have been granted. Smith's final meal consisted of a traditional Southern meal: fried chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, green beans, and sweet tea. He spent his final moments with his spiritual advisor and maintained a composed demeanor as the execution began. Before his execution, Smith's final statement was, "I am sorry for what I did. I know it can never bring back Karen, but I hope you all can find peace." Michael Dwayne Smith was executed by lethal injection on September 26, 2024. His execution raised questions about the application of the death penalty, particularly in cases involving mental illness and clemency recommendations from parole boards. Smith was pronounced dead at 9:08 p.m. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe for more historical and memorable stories like this.